I've called this gratitude through time and memory. And most of us here are people that no matter how dark our personal and world events, hope shimmers and love endures. Whatever my successes in life, I never did one thing alone, ever. Always there was somebody there to help me, encourage me, to support me through the good times and the bad. In that sense, we're always in company with our fellow time travelers and feel that sublime sense of gratitude. There are the ordinary things we are grateful for, like our dinner yesterday, our rewarding work, our sense of friends and family, and always and forever being an observer of the wonders of our natural world, all of our love worlds. There are those memorable moments when everything and everyone comes together in a binding mutual understanding, all having a sense of trust and conscious well-being. In such cherished moments, it seems as if we see into the life of things and are conscious of our place in the cosmos. Susan Backer told me about a recent meeting of the search committee. After hours of working together, like I think she said 7 hours, working on a written statement, all of a sudden they decided they needed to do it again. And they were all in perfect agreement. And to paraphrase what she said, everyone was in total agreement and was respectful of all opinions. They were together in perfect harmony, from what I could gather, working for the common good of all of us. Those are rare moments, but they happen, and when they do, gratitude floods the room. Being a time traveler as I am, like most of us, gone to college, married, had a professional life, a family. In my 40s, I had a sense of purpose, finally getting some understanding of what my values were and how I could enlist them in action in the world. I became a Unitarian. I am grateful for that time and grateful for all of you. I read the other day that the 60s are the happiest years of our lives. Did we know that? We have made and lived a lot of decisions, and we have survived. Hard to believe now, but I used to run with the hand lawnmower. Can I even believe that? I find myself often grateful for my age, which at 90 is about 7% of the population. It's a long perspective, and I like to think it gives me an added time to think about my life, the people I've loved, and have more insight into who they were and what we were together. I am grateful for memory. The future and plans are more vague to me now, but the past is fraught with meaning, a sort of magical conjuring up of people, places, events, a private movie. Lore has it that memory is a healthy attribute of aging. You just don't want to overdo it. People get really bored, you know what I mean? We all have memories and like to share them with mutual friends. I'm sure you've had the experience of sitting around with friends, summoning up some person from the past, able to recall everything about them, their favorite color, their dog's name, the car they drove, and their job, but can't remember their name. We go through the alphabet, no deal. We try and finally agree, we all know what we mean, let's forget it. Later, someone will mercifully flash on the name and yell it out, and we are all so grateful. We yell with delight. They get the door prize. My siblings are all gone, and I am most grateful for an array of nieces and nephews and their children. My grandnieces and nephews who bring back the memory and are a delight in my life. I am their Montana great aunt. I get to be great without doing a thing. And I wonder sometimes when they look at me, if they think that I wore a bonnet, a long dress, and rode a horse to a one-room school and read Little House on the Prairie. But I'm grateful that they remember me and keep in touch with their Montana roots. They and their parents are what remains. And always and forever, I am grateful, and aren't we all, for love. Thank you.
It is my mother who really taught me to be grateful. My dad, on the other hand, just loved a good story. He was actually from Germany, grew up in Germany, and many of his stories were from Germany, including the one about a German couple, Ilse and Jürgen. Now, when Ilse and Jürgen got married, they were older than most couples, and years went by without children, and they decided they were so devoted to each other that they would be happy no matter what. And then, surprise, came their son, Otto. Well, they loved Otto dearly, of course. Meeting his every needs, giving him every single advantage, became their mission. Otto played, he crawled, Otto walked. And the months went by. However, he made absolutely no effort to connect with them. No peekaboo games, no gestures. Even at 2 years old, he wasn't babbling, no baby talk, and no words. So they took him to the doctor, who said, just be patient. Every child develops on their own timeline, and this will happen, and just take him home and love him. So back at home for nearly another year, and even though Otto clearly understood everything they were saying, he never conveyed anything at all back to them. So they traveled to the big town of Frankfurt to a child development specialist who ran an entire battery of psychological and medical tests, but could find nothing amiss with Otto. Then one Sunday, the family was having lunch, and Ilse ladled out a big bowl of steaming knödel soup, something that Otto seemed to have enjoyed immensely in the past, but after all, they were just guessing. He brought the spoon to his mouth and then leapt to his feet. He ejected the soup all the way across the dining room in the general direction of his mom, and he shrieked, "This soup is too hot. I could have been scalded. I could have experienced serious burns, been injured, perhaps even disfigured." Ilse also leapt to her feet, but her eyes were shining with tears of happiness, and she said, "My sunshine, you speak, and in full sentences, and you're quite articulate." But her husband took a much dimmer view, just glowering across the table. He didn't see his son as a ray of sunshine that day at all. He said, "Why now? Why not just before, after all these years? Otto simply shrugged his shoulders and said, "Well, I suppose it's because up until now, everything has been just fine." Well, this story was told so often by my father, it became kind of a family lore. There was a shorthand around it, and sometimes when we went out and we saw someone, especially a young person who seemed to be so entitled, a kind of anti-gratitude little brat, my father would lean across the table and say, "The soup was too hot." No one knew remotely what we were talking about except for us. Sometimes there was no soup in the vicinity, but we all got it. And that was a real lesson about gratitude, about understanding how much we do have and recognizing it, and giving thanks is so essential. For me, the story of Otto is kind of a little bit of a measuring stick. I wonder, am I getting like Otto, where the things that I remark on are the things that are wanting? Sometimes when I go out with friends, it turns into sharing stories of our infirmities, especially as we get a little older. It's his hip, her bunions, my eyesight, which up until now has been pretty much fine. And instead, I think, couldn't we just register gratitude about the abilities and the things we do have and what we do retain? Can we treasure what's around us, what we're gifted with? And could we acknowledge these advantages, even when surrounded by turmoil, loss, and uncertainty? Or will you choose to embody Otto, who shrieked about one single deprivation against the background of constant good? And as you all know, gratitude and recognizing and seeing and giving thanks is also the province of the many of the world's greatest spiritual traditions. Religions born in a place of conflict which continues to this day, a place where people walk through the valley of the shadow of death, in a place where wisdom grew and flourished, words that still linger with us today. Thou preparest a table before me in the presence of mine enemies. Thou anointest my head with oil, my cup runneth over. Imagine being in a place where water is so scarce and precious, and yet to your amazement, you're given more than you need, more than you earned by grace alone. May your cup runneth over. May your soup be the perfect temperature, and may you recognize and give thanks in good times and in bad for your blessings. Thank you.
So I was the last to volunteer for sharing my gratitude, giving you 5 minutes. Well, it's going to be more like 7. Because I didn't really know what I wanted to say about gratitude. But it's November, it's Thanksgiving, and I knew something, my muse was telling me, you got to step up and say something, get in the arena and put yourself out there. So I did. I volunteered, not quite clear about what I was going to talk about today. So, we've all heard about the value of gratitude. Lowers your blood pressure, you sleep better, you're happier, you make more friends. There's a lot of benefits to that. Personally, I don't have a designated gratitude practice like writing down my gratitude for the good things in my life. I'm not disciplined enough to do anything like that kind of daily writing. So I'm just... So what triggered my contemplation about gratitude and my desire to share gratitude with you today materialized when I recently heard an interview with Neil deGrasse Tyson, the well-known astrophysicist. The interview, which I'll go into a little bit later, reminded me of an early Buddhist teaching that I heard many years ago. And the teaching was an attempt to show how extremely rare and precious our life is on earth. And in the teaching it's rare, so we have an obligation to live in kindness, discipline, and integrity. And I'm sure many of you have heard this teaching. It goes like this. Imagine there was one life preserver thrown somewhere in some ocean on Earth. And there's exactly one turtle in all of the oceans across the planet swimming underwater somewhere. The probability that you came into being is the same as that turtle sticking its head out of the water into the middle of that life preserver on one try. The probability that you came into being, that you have a life, is the same as that turtle swimming all of the oceans in the world to stick its head through that life preserver. It's been calculated by various experts what the odds are for that turtle to surface inside the life preserver. Go figure, some people like to do arithmetic. Some calculate it at 1 in 700 million. One chance in 700 million that that turtle will find its way into the life preserver. It's been calculated many times in many different ways, and the number of the hundreds of trillions vary. But once we get over 1 trillion, the distinct is kind of moot. It's like, how do we even understand what that means? And then by a chance, a few weeks ago, I came across the interview that I mentioned earlier with Neil deGrasse Tyson. He addressed the phenomena of our chances of being born on Earth. I kind of like the way he thinks. It was like my question, how does this come about? This is what Neil deGrasse Tyson said, and I transcribed the interview because it was a short interview on YouTube. This is what he said. There's been about 100 billion people who have ever lived. To calculate how many people can exist going forward, we look at the genes and how many combinations of genes can make an authentic human being. The result is a stupendously larger number than more than 100 billion. What it means is that you are alive against stupendous odds. He goes on to say, you are breathing air, observing sunsets, gazing into the night sky. Most people who could exist mathematically will never experience that. Most people who could exist will never exist. You are as special a living entity as there ever was. Those are words of a scientist. I was deeply moved by this. Both my brain and my heart kind of quivered with trying to grasp this beyond just the words, like, what does this mean? How do I put this into my life, my psyche? I saw Neil deGrasse Tyson and his interviewer were both so in awe of this calculation as he was talking that the interviewer eyes teared up. Then the question for me surfaced once again, like when I first heard the turtle story. Why me? Why am I one of those who surfaced against the odds of 1 in 700 trillion? Or 1 in 100 billion, if you want to take the scientific view. So if this is true, what was calculated in modern times and what was intuited 2,500 years ago, if this is true, then the extraordinary opportunity to walk this earth in this time is incredibly rare and precious. Rare beyond comprehension. What's gratitude got to do with this? Well, for me, instead of taking my existence for granted, assuming I'll just, bumble along and go on the way I have, I could practice and live my life as a rare and wondrous miracle and see the same in everyone I meet. When I open my eyes after a night's sleep, to be aware that I am here. I have another day, I have another moment, another rare opportunity. It's those beautiful sunsets and night skies that will remind me too. And really, I can be grateful for the difficulties, challenges, and roadblocks that help me to grow in integrity, become more aware, and live my life in deep gratitude. To be grateful no matter what is coming down. This very life is extraordinary, wondrous, miraculous, and so very, very precious. For this I am grateful.